When I was a kid, I spent a lot of my childhood camping. My dad's family owns a nice camp on a lake. We traveled there every 2 months or so and host fun activities with the entire family. This was always a fun time, and most of my fondest memories happened at this camp. This one time, the whole family was set to be staying at the camp for 5 days and nights. My 3 cousins were there too, and we had a lot of fun playing by the water. On one of the days, the 4 of us got bored and decided to explore the surrounding forest. The camp was private property and was located on a ton of acres, so our parents didn't mind us going off by ourselves to explore. As we walked, we decided to lay down sticks facing a certain direction in order to avoid getting lost. Not the most reliable method, but at the time, us kids thought it was a brilliant idea. We walked around aimlessly, just climbing trees and collecting cool rocks that we found on the ground. We ended up coming across an abandoned shack. It was small, and there wasn't much inside besides some trash. But that didn't stop us from finding it extremely fascinating. We explored the contents of the shack for a couple minutes. Eventually, one of my cousins looked up and noticed a doll stuck in one of the trees. We each collected long sticks and tried to knock it down. It was very high up, so we mostly resorted to throwing things at it. I threw a rock at it, and it ended up falling out of the tree. That's when we heard a loud, terrified scream. It wasn't far in the distance either. This scream felt like it came from right next to us. We looked around into the surrounding brush and traded looks. We didn't stick around to find out where or who the scream was coming from. We all ran back in the direction we came from. As we ran over our trail of sticks, we noticed that some of them that we had lined up had been moved, almost as though someone had deliberately moved them. We ran for as long as we could, terrified to stop. When we made it back to the camp, we told our parents everything. They thought we were making most of it up. But still, they didn't let us go off on our own after that. I'm not sure what or who was in the forest that night, but it felt like us throwing stuff at the doll pissed it off. Since then, nothing like that has ever happened to us. We've been back to the camp multiple times, and even went back to the same area as teenagers to see if anything like it would happen again. But nothing ever did. I'll try to keep this short. I'm a man in my late 30s, and I recently bought a small camp near a lake in Ontario, Canada. I'm a big fan of the outdoors, and I thought that buying a camp would be the perfect way to do my hobbies in peace, away from the public. I had seen the camp in person before buying it, but last week was my first time actually staying there for a night. I packed most of my essentials, food, water, and some fishing equipment, and drove 45 minutes to the camp. It had been raining all week, but this weekend was set to be clear skies and sunny. When I got there, I noticed some tire tracks in the mud that hadn't been there before. I shrugged it off and made my way into the cabin. It was still early in the day, so I set off to go fishing and explore the area for a bit. When I got back to my camp, I was exhausted. I prepared dinner and got ready for bed. It didn't take me long to fall asleep either. After scrolling on my phone for a couple minutes, I quickly fell asleep. I woke up a couple hours later. It was still dark, and at first I wasn't sure what exactly had woken me up. Then I heard some rustling outside. I figured it was an animal, and quietly got out of bed so I could watch it without scaring it away. When I looked outside my window, however, I saw a man. He was dressed in all black, sneaking around my property. I wasn't sure what his intentions were, but I knew it had to be something bad. I watched as he walked towards the front door and tried to open it. I quietly walked back to my bedroom to grab my phone, then called the police. Since I was far out of town, it would take them a while to arrive, so I was left to fend for myself for a while. I was instructed by the operator to lock myself in a room and wait until the police arrived. I did as I was told. I was so tense, my heart couldn't stop beating. Then, still on the phone with the operator, I heard glass shatter. He was in the house. I wasn't taking any chances. I got the last-minute idea to open up my bedroom window and climb out. My car keys were in the kitchen, so I had no choice but to run into the surrounding trees to hide. Luckily, the man didn't seem to notice I had left. I was still on the phone with the operator, who told me the police were only a few minutes away. Finally, the police arrived, and a wave of relief swept over me. They arrested the man, who was still in the house. The police said he had my car keys in hand and was also in possession of a knife. He was likely planning to rob me, then flee using my car. We're not sure how he managed to make it to the camp, since it's in the middle of nowhere, but police theorized that he had someone drop him off in the area. I'm terrified to go back there. If the man really did have help, I'm afraid that they'll try to rob me again. After all, the camp is in the middle of nowhere, so robbing me would be pretty easy with no police nearby. I'm not sure if I'll ever go back there, but I don't want to sell it either. My friends and I decided to go camping for a week during spring break a couple of years back. There were 6 of us in total, and this would be our first time camping as a group. We found a decent and cheap-looking campsite and set out. We had 3 tents in total, each sleeping 2 of us. The first night went by without an incident. We made a campfire, roasted marshmallows, explored the area a bit, and had some drinks. The next night, however, it didn't go as well. We had spent the next day hiking around in the area and got back at around 5 p.m. We started up a fire and began cooking dinner. After this, the sun started to set, and we got out some drinks and put on a bit of music. That's when my friend Andy stops and says, "Do you see that?" We all laughed at him and followed his gaze into the forest. And we saw it. A dark figure standing in the trees. It was hard to make out since it was getting dark, but it definitely looked like the body of a large person. We shut off the music and all stared, talking about how creepy it was. My other friend Adrian then called out to the figure, asking what it was doing out there. But it didn't respond or even move. We laughed and theorized that it was likely just a tree in the distance that simply looked like a man. We decided to go about our night. The sun went down and the figure was impossible to see now. We directed our flashlight in its direction, and the shadowy figure was still standing there. We chatted for about an hour and then decided to call it a night. My friend Andy shined the flashlight at it one last time before bed, but the shadowy figure that we thought was a tree was now gone. We looked everywhere for it, thinking we had just lost sight of the direction it was in. But sure enough, the figure had moved. It wasn't just a tree. We didn't get much sleep that night, and we all heard a lot of strange noises as well. Perhaps we were just being paranoid, but I have no doubt in my mind that whatever that thing was creeping around our camp as we slept.